All right, happy Tuesday. Today in phonics, we're going to be doing pages 177 and 178. Let's look at the yellow box at the top of the page and we'll read the instructions together. Ready? Fill in the bubble beside the word that names or describes each picture. Okay, and you've done this before. We'll just do number one together. Is number one a picture of box, socks, or boxes? I hope you chose boxes. Neatly fill in the circle for boxes and then turn your paper over. All right, let's read the instructions on the back on page 178. Find the word in the box that will finish each sentence. Print the word on the line. All right, sometimes I know some of you like to go ahead, but stay with me because there's a tricky one, and we're going to go over two of the answers together. But first, let's read the words in the green box. Ready? Strangest, fearful, waited, happily. Okay, second line. Quietly, biggest, weir. Oh, look at weir. There's a clue there. It begins with an uppercase letter. And darkness. And the last line. Longer, couldn't, watched, and brightest. Okay, so let's do number one together. The spaceship arrived blank. Look at the green box. See if you can find an answer that you think makes sense. The spaceship arrived blank. Okay. The first word in the second line is quietly. Everybody circle quietly and print it on the line. The spaceship arrived quietly. And then we're going to do number 5 together because the word that we use in number 5 also makes sense in another sentence. And I don't want you to get confused by that. So let's do number 5. It was the blank light we had ever seen. Remember, we're talking about the spaceship. All of our sentences are about that spaceship. And the correct answer is brightest. The last word in the box, brightest, makes sense for number 5. Circle brightest and print it on the line. It was the brightest light we had ever seen. Okay, you may choose to do forward or backwards phonics. And when you're finished, come on back for math. Hi guys. Today for math, we're going to be doing pages 355 and 356. And then we're going to do another fun math lesson after this one. We'll have 2 math lessons today. So right now, yesterday we talked about adding nickels and pennies. Today we're talking about adding dimes and pennies. So we know a dime is worth 10 cents. We've talked about that because we added dimes and pennies and tens and ones. So I really think all of you know a dime is 10 cents. To practice counting by tens, I want you to stand up. We're going to do our jumping jacks, counting by tens. Ready? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. All right. And if we look at the boy at the top of the page, it says to find a total amount, count on. And it's showing you what you already know, that a dime is 10 cents, and that we count by tens for dimes, and then when we get to the pennies, we have to start counting by ones. So remember, when we're drawing dimes, we're drawing circles with 10 cents in it. Let's count what we have here. 10, 20, 30, 31, 32. We have 32 cents. And we haven't talked about this yet, but we're going to talk about it today. When you're counting money, it's easier to start with the coin that's worth the most money. Watch. If I start counting my pennies, 1, 2, 12, 22, 32. Which do you think is easier? Do you think it's easier to do 1, 2, 12, 22, 32, or to start with our biggest coins first, 10, 20, 30, 31, 32? Okay, so remember that when we get to the back, we'll talk about that a little bit more. But on the front, you're counting the money, just like we did yesterday. Let's do number 1 together. Ready? 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, so you're going to trace the amount that you're saying when you're counting. Remember, you're not writing 10 under the nickels and 1s under the pennies. You're writing it as you would if you were counting the money. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. If you put that money in the piggy bank, you'd have 14 cents, so trace 14 cents. Number 4, we've already talked a lot about how 1 dime is the same as 10 pennies, so put a check mark on number 4 and turn your paper over. Okay, you're going to do the back just like you did the front. For numbers 8 and 9, it would be helpful if you had real money you could practice counting with. You can do that. Hopefully your parents have some change that you can use, or your grandparents, depending on who you're with today. And that would help you to count the money. If you don't, you can get scrap paper and draw pictures like we did up here. All right, so go ahead and finish the front and back of this paper, and when you're finished, we'll come back for our other math paper. Hi guys! All right, on these math pages, we're talking about geometry, and geometry is just a fancy word for shapes. All right, and I drew the shapes that are at the top of your page. I want you to start by looking at your paper. At the top, it says these are closed figures. And let's look at the figures or the shapes in the first purple box. Ready? Square, circle, triangle, rectangle. And then we have open figures. It says these are open figures. And they're not named. They don't have a name because they're not really a shape. You can see where the first one, if you finished it, could be a square, but it's not finished. The second one, if you finished it, it could be a circle, but again, that's not finished. And the third one, if you put a line across the bottom, it could be a triangle, but it's not finished. It's an open figure. And the way I like to think of them is if you look at these are closed. If I opened the lid, put water in it, and closed it, and turned it upside down, nothing would come out. If I had a jar and I put a lid on it and turned it upside down, nothing would come out. However, if I put water in any of these, and either of these here and flipped it over, it would come out, and we know the water wouldn't stay in that one, right? So those are open figures, okay? Now, I know I mentioned a jar. I don't have a jar up here today because we're not talking about things that are three-dimensional, meaning my piece of chalk, it's not flat. We're talking about plane shapes or plane figures. Plane figures are flat, like a piece of paper. You would draw this on a piece of paper. If I held up my cell phone, it's thin, but it's not flat. There's space from side to side. If I held up this duck, it's not flat, right? But if I drew my phone, or I drew the duck, now they're flat. When they're flat, they're called plane shapes. And it's Plane. They're flat, they're plane. All right? Remember, these are closed and these are open. And today, we're working mostly with the idea of open and closed shapes. But you do need to know that flat shapes are plane shapes because we're going to be talking about that later on. Not today. All right, so let's look at number 1. It says, draw to make each a closed figure. There's not a right or wrong way to draw it as long as you don't have any openings. As long as all the lines are connected, then you're fine, okay? Let's go down to, so go ahead and you'll connect those dots to make those closed shapes. Let's go down to number 4. It says color each closed figure blue. So number 4 they did for you. It's closed, they colored it blue. Is number 5 closed? Nope, it's not closed, so leave it alone. Do not color that one. So you're only coloring the ones that are closed. And in number 12, it says, is there more than one way to draw the lines in exercises 1 through 3? And there are. For example, number 1, looks like that. And you could just draw a straight line, like I did with my pink chalk. Or with my green chalk, instead of doing that, I could have gone like this. So there is more than one way to do it. Oops, this accidentally got erased. As long as it is a closed shape. Okay, so put a check mark on number 12. Turn your papers over, and number 13 on the back. It says draw 4 different figures on each side. Okay, there's not a certain figure you have to draw. For the open figures, you can draw 3 that look like this and 1 more, or make up 4 of your own. It doesn't matter as long as they're open. On the closed figures, you can use the ones that were provided on the front in the box, or you can make up your own. They just have to be closed figures. All right, you're going to do number 14 on your own, but I'll read it to you one time through to think about it. Janet and Olivia made closed figures. Daryl made an open figure. Olivia used the most lines. Which figure did each child make? Okay, so I'm going to read it again, and then you're going to have to figure out where to write the names. Janet and Olivia made closed figures. Daryl made an open figure. Find the open figure and write Daryl's name next to the open figure. Okay. It said Olivia used the most lines. Of the 2 left, which one uses the most lines? Write Olivia's name next to the one that uses more lines. And then Janet has to be the one that's left. Okay. Number 15 is tricky. Color the picture that is made up of all closed figures. Look at that first picture. Remember, the mouth is not a closed figure when you're doing number 15. All right? So go ahead and finish this on your own, and then we'll come back for English. Hi, guys. Today we're looking at our English page, pages 185 and 186, and we're continuing to talk about antonyms. So remember, last week we talked about synonyms, and remember, synonyms are words that mean the same thing or almost the same thing. And today we're talking about antonyms, and an antonym, remember, is just a fancy word for opposite. Okay, so let's read our blue title at the top. Working with antonyms. And let's read the directions together. Complete each sentence with the correct antonym for each underlined word. Use the word bank. Okay, and remember we like to call that our word scarf. So let's read our word scarf. Ready? Cold, tall, stop, down, fast, off, in, happy. And we're going to do number 1 together. The seesaw went up and down. And in number 1, they underlined the word up. Let's look at our word scarf. Which word is the antonym for up? I hope you chose down. Circle down and print it in the blank for number 1. When you're finished, turn your paper over so we can go over the instructions for the back. On the back it says Antonyms Review. Circle the correct antonym to complete each sentence. And we're going to do number 1 together. Number 1 says, in summertime the weather is, and inside the parentheses it says hot, cold. What's the correct answer? In summertime the weather is hot. So you're going to circle the word hot. You'll do the rest just like that. Go down to the bottom of the page. You may put an X on Writer's Corner. And remember, tomorrow is your specials day, so I'll see you on Thursday. Bye, guys.